What up, folks? Oh, dude, I can't do it because my I tried. I could do it last night, but I've been sick, Doc and Maddie, like really bad sick. I can barely even swallow right now. I thought I'd be able to do it. Can't do it today. But what up, folks? Welcome to the Midlife Crisis Podcast. Yes, that is right. You see Maddie's face. Maddie is here. He's going to be here for the next 2 podcasts. So before, well, I always do this. Doc, how you doing, man? Welcome.
All right.
Podcast.
Yeah, we'll give you a pass on the intro there. I heard you were on a 3-hour marathon space or pod last night, so you're all right, buddy.
Yeah, I should have gone to bed at 9 o'clock. I was up till like midnight because here's the problem with these late night podcasts. I get so amped up. And then how do you fall asleep after an amazing 3-hour conversation? It's very difficult. So with that being said, Maddie, how are you? Welcome back, brother.
Oh, man, I'm amazing. Life is amazing. I hate missing these, but want to make as much as I can out of all of it. But life is really good. Got some cool things kind of brewing down here in Florida, and I can't wait to catch up.
I am excited. Give me one interesting thing that's happened since the last time we've talked.
Okay, well, one thing that I have never been a part of is if you've ever been to a Red Bull Flutag, I probably said it wrong.
Oh, yes.
They just had one right here in Tampa. And so I was recommending that new flavor because, of course, they were just tossing them out like Skittles. And that's actually a lot of fun. They do a really good production with that. And I was not prepared for like the level of that event. I guess when I see it on TV, you think it's just maybe a few people around, some crazy people jumping off a dock into the water. But it is a real event. It is a ton of fun, and people go all out for that. And so it was that was really neat, man. That was like a first kind of thing that made me feel kind of like I'm here, part of Tampa. It was nice.
I love it, man. Yeah, I've seen it on TV, and that's wild stuff. But that, me, bro. That's my vibe. I probably love something like that.
Yes, you would be 100% in.
Although I have substantially cut back the drinking and partying due to many factors, but I still think it would be tons of fun. So thanks, man. I mean, I'm super pumped that you're back. Before we get into the deep part of the podcast, which is the world famous midlife crisis question, I like to do formal introductions here. One thing that I hear, and Doc is a part of this on Spaces, super, super topical. But what we do here is something special. We like to go deep. We are genuinely interested about Doc as a human being. I absolutely love doing this. We're going to have a magical conversation. But let's set the stage. This man has 20 years experience in real estate and finance, undergrad degree in finance, and have earned certificates. By the way, that's plural, multiple certificates in real estate. Serial entrepreneur after leaving corporate America. We're definitely talking about that because corporate America is sucking my soul right now. So we'll love to talk about the transition of that. Founded and run multiple small business, licensed general contractor doing residential remodels and new construction. I could go on and on and on, man. I mean, bars and restaurants, part of Touchstone Capital Venture, been full-time with Touchstone since 2000 thing, and of course also launched Mukti Labs. Is it Mukti?
Mukti, yeah.
Mukti. What nationality is that?
Or is that just it's actually a Sanskrit word. Yeah.
It's a Sanskrit word. How about that? So he launched Mukti. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Mukti Labs. Yep.
Mukti Labs. He's got a manifesto and really the insights into why. And I think that's one of the first things that resonated with me, Doc, is like reading that manifesto and you went really deep into the why. And we are passionate about the why. Maddie and I spent, 3 to 6 months writing our manifesto, trying to quell it down into one sentence, which is bringing back the lost art of genuine human connection. As we get more connected, we think what we're doing now is going to become a lost art. Our mission is to not let that happen. So you concentrating on that, obviously the relationship with the plague. I just know that you're a good human being trying to do the right thing. So I honestly have about 6 more bullet points but I'm going to stop there. Doc, how did I do? Did I do you justice? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, no, we can leave it at that. I'm not a hype guy. I'm not a like pound my chest, thump my chest, talk about how many deals I've done type of guy, So I think that's perfect. Leave it right where it was. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, really, it's just like Mukti Labs and this whole Web3, journey we're on. Some people say it's all about the tech. Certainly, a bunch of people are all about the money, and I get caught up in those things too. But yeah, same, man. I appreciate the idea of like putting out a manifesto, and brevity is not a strength of mine, right? So like trying to what you guys did, taking your why and boiling it down to a sentence is impressive and really resonates, man. We always have had good conversations with you right out of the gate. So I know this is going to be great. I know we'll touch on some of that professional stuff and career and all that, but I love this idea of I'm here for the connection. Like that's I like that.
Yeah, and one of the things that resonated with me, and I hadn't thought about this until last night. The guest that I had said it, and when you think of Web3, you think of investing, and you think of flips and all of these, the meme coins are going on right now. But his point was actually what we do here on this podcast is more Web3 than anything else going on in Web3, which is connection and community. That's really at the core, right? It's if you think about all of these innovations, even social media, right? It's a new technology, but what was it actually doing? It was bringing people together in a different way. Web3 is doing the same thing, right? So that's what we're really critically excited and is our mission, and we think is important. So amazing intro already. We're going straight into the world famous midlife crisis question, which is, Doc, how did you get to that beautiful seat you're sitting in today? Please give us episode 1, 2, and 3 for the audience that is currently watching or will watch this in the future. Episode 1, childhood memories, people that impacted you, influences. I'm interested. Were you a tinkerer? Did you play sports? Did you have a relative or parent figure that heavily influenced you? Why
role
did your
models
mind start molding the way that you think today? Because your childhood has a profound impact. Every time someone has actually thought, oh, that's like a small part, when we actually start peeling back the layers of the onion, they're like, holy shit. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. And then 2, your middle part of the career. We just listed a ton of accomplishments, and there's a lot in this section, really wins, losses, things that you can share to maybe help people prevent the same mistakes. And then episode 3, obviously, why RWAs? How did you find Web3? What are you excited about what the Forge is doing right now? We even go into what the Forge is for people that don't know. And then what does the next 3 to 6 months look like? So let's start with episode 1. Cannot wait to hear it. Take it away, my man.
I love it. Yeah. So early, childhood influences. Yeah, I've done a lot of like self-reflection over the years, actually. So, it's good. We can go deep here. Who knows? Maybe I'll discover some new stuff, but pretty clear to me. Like, so I grew up in Boston, really tight family, lived with my aunt and my grandmother in a 2-family house. And then like in 5th grade, we moved into this big 11-room Victorian house, and grandma and my aunt moved in with us, so like I had 3 moms growing up. But it was the type of thing like, dinner on the table every night at 6 o'clock. Sunday was, Sunday dinner, typically some of the extended family would come over. So like just a good family. I mean, I don't know what I say. Like, I don't know what a normal family is, you know what I mean? But or a functional family, right? Like my family had its own dysfunction.
It's all about perspective, right, my man?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just had a good childhood in that way, and both my parents worked in human services. When I was growing up, my mom was a registered nurse, and my old man, his first career was he was a nursing home administrator. And so like I always like to say like, and there was 4 of us kids growing up, and so like I was going to say like I didn't miss any meals when I was a kid, but like we didn't have a lot of extra money either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that definitely shaped You know, both, I'll say both, like, let's say work ethic and like drive, you know, like actually in part of this whole sort of self-reflection process and in some of these conversations, I did kind of unearth this one memory. I was a soccer player growing up, and I remember we were coming back. I played club soccer, so I'd go like 40 minutes for like weekday practices. And we were coming home one night, and I forgot my water bottle or whatever. And I was so thirsty on the way home, and I'm like, Dad, can we just stop and get a Gatorade? And we go in the convenience store, and like my dad breaks out a checkbook. Now realize, like, I'm old, right? Like we're old. So like it wasn't completely uncommon, but it was like my dad didn't even have, you know, $1.50 in his pocket, you know, to buy me a Gatorade on the way home. And that really, I mean, man, I couldn't have been more than 14 years old, you know, and that sticks with me today. And so I know a lot of my drive, you know, comes from that idea of like, man, that was tough. Like I said, my parents were amazing, worked hard, you know, had a great upbringing, but, you know, wasn't super comfortable or whatever. And I feel like, you know, we wanted for some stuff. And so like, that was a big drive of mine to be able to like step up, make that next move up, you know, for my family once I had one.
Right. And let me ask you this, like, you've already given us a ton of amazing information. One, just the house that you grew up in. And then, you know, I was actually going to ask, and you already answered the question. It was like, because people can interpret not having a lot of money in two different ways. They can take it the way that you did, right? Which was like, I'm going to be driven because of uncomfortable moments like you just talked about, or I'm going to play the woe is me game and not get out of it. Was it these uncomfortable moments, or was there anything else there that like really made you go down the path, which I think is the more productive path of maybe not having, you know, all the things you wanted as a kid? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, for sure. No, that like, I know the point, right? Like I can actually point to it, is when I was in college. And so it's like, I had that upbringing, right? Like parents in social services, we didn't have a lot. It wasn't necessarily like, I don't know, expecting a lot. I didn't have any like huge, like capitalist dreams or whatever. At that time, I wasn't realizing like how much of a driver that really would have been.
Right.
And so I went off to college, and I didn't know what to, I didn't know what I was going to major in. So I got into college and went to a liberal arts school, went in like undecided. I took a philosophy course and fell in love, like intro to philosophy freshman year, fell in love with it.
Right.
No, I'm going to be a philosophy major, right? Like this is me. Like I'm like ADHD, like to the max, like shiny object syndrome, right? Fall in love with something, go deep down that rabbit hole. Right. And so next thing you know, I'm taking philosophy courses and I'm going to be a philosophy major. And my old man says, he goes, what do you say? He goes, so you're going to drive a cab in Boston or Quincy? Like, what do you do with a philosophy degree, you know?
Right.
But I was having a good time, and I didn't think too much of that. And then what happened was I got an internship, summer job. One of my uncles worked for Merrill Lynch, and I went to work in the mailroom at Merrill Lynch one summer. And like, I saw how the other half lived, you know? And I saw these guys. I worked in the sort of like in the marketing department, the mailroom. So I would these guys would be going out on sales trips, and I'd like mail them their materials. So they would be there at the office when they got there and stuff. And I just saw all this business happening and these guys flying around on airplanes and all types of money. And I'm like, man, I need to get some exposure to this. So that was between my sophomore and junior year. And so I actually switched tracks from liberal arts school to the business school, and I completed my business undergrad and finance degree in 2 years. Because something changed in me at that point. And one of the discussions I had with my uncle, another quote that is seared in my mind, he said, Tommy, my real name's Tom. Tommy, he goes, the world needs people like your mom and my wife, right? Like my mom was a registered nurse. His wife was a special ed teacher. The world needs people like your mom and my wife to save the world, like one kid at a time, or one patient at a time, and they need guys like me to write checks.
Interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we jumped there, because like these are amazing lessons that you had that were pivotal moments for you. I still want to rewind back to childhood because I still have a couple questions, and I'll let Maddie go after these questions. One thing that is interesting to me is you touched on the hardships of the financials, but you also, what you described to me were strong parental figures that were doing good things. Talk to me about some of these values that were instilled in you from them. What did you experience? Like, there's got to probably be some things that you take from that part of your upbringing as well. I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, and again, a lot of this is reflection now, looking back and understanding how I came up. At the time, I probably I wasn't aware of it, but
for sure.
But yeah, so the importance of looking after other people. My dad was a nursing home administrator. I remember one time they had a flood in the at the nursing home, and like we went, like we were kids. I couldn't have been more than like 8 or 9 years old. And like the elevator shorted out. And so like they couldn't get the meals up from the basement kitchen. And so like we went and like we were like we stood on the stairs and like we were part of like the the human train to get the meals up, out of the kitchen and up to the residents. And like, my mom was she was a registered nurse, but actually in the last part of her career, she was like the program director for a residential and day program for autistic young adults. And I worked there for a couple of summers too when I was younger. And so like I would do like hands-on, like I was like what they call them, a behavioral health tech. And like there's this one guy, he was autistic, and like if you didn't hold his hands, like he would like hit himself in the head.
Wow.
And my mom like did like medication management and behavioral management plans and all that, type of thing for those people. And so I think what I absorbed from all that was like, it's not all about, making huge money. That was never like a driver for me, except from a place, honestly, again, kind of realizing some of these things now, that ended up being coming from a place of lack, right? Which in my early career, I know we'll get to it in episode 2 or maybe 3, it caused me some trouble. And I'm trying to take the shortcuts, right? I'm trying to get the easy money. I'm trying to make the big win because I was coming from a place of lack and not like a business upbringing, right? It wasn't like my old man was like an entrepreneur and was like trying to tell me, hey, here's how you hard scrabble, make your way up in the world. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful insights. You see what we're doing here already? We're building why you think the way that you think. We're going to get through the professional career. We're going to get to the Web3. There's going to be people that watch this and are be like, I'm buying 100 architects right now. I fucking love this guy. So Maddie, I'm gonna give you a chance. We're already, believe it or not, we're already 20 minutes deep. Like this is how quickly the time goes. Go for it, man.
Yeah, so I love the quote that your uncle had, and basically what it sounds like is that you had a heart for giving. You were brought up in a family that taught the importance or demonstrated the importance of giving back. To his point that you need people to cut those checks. So here's my question: because it's an easy pivot to go from it's someone else's responsibility to fund these things, or it's my responsibility to fix and fund these things. What were some of the kind of the core memories, or maybe some of the turning points that led you to internalize that and say, you know what, I'm going to do something to be able to do this, rather than relying on kind of the aggregate?
Yeah, and you can jump ahead to episode 2 if that answer is, later on in life, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, that answer definitely is later on, because like I said, when I first made the pivot, to business school, basically is really where that whole thing started. Some of it was like I kind of got permission from my uncle in some ways, right? Like, and like I said, don't think as a sophomore in college that like I had some like, grand scheme for what my life was going to be, and I was going to be like, working social services like my parents. I don't really know what I was thinking at that time,
right?
But I do recall this idea that like he was giving me permission, right?
Yeah.
That making money is okay. You know what I mean? Like being a capitalist is okay. Like, and that stuff comes with responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that's really, and I didn't put that together until much later. It took some pain. It took some wrong steps. It took some hard lessons, which to some degree I continue to learn. Right. I've been throwing money at meme coins, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Flushing soul down the toilet. Like,
yeah.
Well, to your point, I mean, we kind of evolve, right? But
yeah,
you got a taste of it at Merrill Lynch when you saw the others, you saw how you saw the other half lived. And until you have that exposure, it's very easy to be kind of limited in our own little circle, right? Our world. And when that expands, it can be a game changer. And it sounds like you had good people to help to kind of direct that expansion, keep you focused on what mattered.
Yeah. To some degree, keep grounded, right? And again, it came from that point. Like, notice how he tied those two things together. The world needs both types of people.
Exactly.
And we're not separate, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're tied together, and we need to find a way to sort of work together.
Yeah, and I wanna harp on that just a little bit more, because this is yet another thing why things, even particularly in today, why things are so divided. And I think your uncle gave you one of the greatest gifts, whichever. And I love how you put it. That's totally a short right there, is he gave you permission, right? And people need to understand that it's okay to like money and also be a good person.
Yeah.
Just because you like money and you're a capitalist and you've built these really successful business doesn't mean you're a shitbag.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's balance in everything that you do, and knowing and hearing your story, and which is so cool, is somebody's going to hear this, right? And they're going to be like, oh, Doc raised in a really nice family and his parents meant good, but he's also been an insanely successful business guy, and that is okay. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. What you also then have mentioned, though, too, I want to evolve into this. You mentioned a lot of pain points there in the beginning. So take us through this journey of, one of the things that you mentioned is you were taking shortcuts. Another thing that you mentioned is the responsibility of being capitalistic and owning companies. So take us a little bit through that journey, because I think there's going to be a lot of meat here.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is where you, again, I say, looking back now, I have the clarity to know, like, I was coming from a place of lack. I was like, man, I grew up kind of hard, and I don't want that for my kids, or whatever that is. And so, like, early part of my career, I mean, part of this is my natural drive anyways. Like, so Merrill Lynch, I turned the job in the mailroom, into a marketing assistant, into a sales, phone rep, into a sales rep, the whole thing. Right. So I spent a few years doing that at Merrill, but, I'm the type of guy, like, okay, I've been here 6 months. What's next? Right. Like, I want the next job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of that is, some of it's drive and ambition and shiny object syndrome. Most of it is good, right? Like I know I need to be sort of like challenged and be trying to level up in order to, like, put forth my best.
Right.
But again, like any 22-year-old kid or whatever I was at the time, like, impatient, and like, I want to get there faster. Whether it's the next job, the next raise, moving down to, New York, I ended up moving down to New Jersey for a couple of years. Like, I kind of fast forwarded those things when I didn't really need to. In the, let's call that, like, in the professional career.
Right.
And, and then, that drive and that ambition and not the best grounding, let's say, it caused some trouble. I ended up moving down to New Jersey, was working at, like, asset management headquarters at Merrill Lynch down there. I was on my own, 22-year-old kid, out drinking every night. Just like, it got a little nuts. And, just trying to, in some ways, trying to play a part, young finance bro, out on his own, making some coin. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because you go to an NFT Web3 conference and you see the same shit. And I'm like, I've been there, guys, and you're going to make similar mistakes that I did, but you will not listen to me when you're having the time of your life and thinking this is it. And you're like, you're far from this is it, my man.
Yeah.
I know, and it's hard, right? And like, so now, I want to stop fast forwarding, but like, it's like to where I am today, like I look at my son, you know what I mean? I got a 13-year-old son, and like, I'm going to try to guide him as best I can, but he's going to make some of these mistakes.
100%.
You know what I mean? So anyways, yeah, some of the hardships were, being too eager, looking to make the fast money. Like I went to my first, real estate guru boot camp, probably in 2001 or 2002. I would have bought, I'll throw you guys way back. Somebody have to go Google this. I bought the Carlton Sheets cassette tapes from like an infomercial. This was Carlton Sheets. This guy had a program, how to buy houses with no money. He was the first like no money down guy.
Love it.
You know what I mean? And like, so, sorry, Maddie, you'll understand this, right? Is, a lot of times people get into that real estate game thinking it's easy money. You know what I mean? And I can just shortcut the entire thing for anybody listening. Like, there's no easy money. How did I, coming back to Mikey's kind of, how did I get to sit in the seat I'm sitting in? Like, man, I did it all. Like, I did the finance thing. I did the private equity thing. Like, I worked for big companies who did that stuff. I read the partnership agreements. I put in the hours. And then I quit all that stuff. And I went and I put on a tool belt. And I learned the construction business from the ground up. Like, there's no, and this goes true for everything. There's no easy money. And when it comes to partnerships, like, in my view, like, everybody has to bring something of value, Yeah. And that's like probably without a doubt, that is the biggest lesson that I've learned and continue to learn, by the way. I still trip over this. I'm too quick to partner up or bring on, either key employees or partners or whatever. But that's fundamental. It's like, and so I turn that around, right? So if I think my general business sense tells me only partner with people who are bringing real value, what am I bringing? Right. What is the value that I'm bringing? And that's, for me now, that is my experience, right? But that took a long time to build up.
Dude, you're pulling at Maddie and I's heartstrings because that's our Achilles heel as well. We genuinely care about people, and we've made grave mistakes from the beginning to trust too much and immediately want to, you just want to see the best in everybody, but that's not how the real world works. Not a majority of the time, but sometimes, maybe a majority of the time, who knows? One thing I want to touch on that you said in the earlier part, because I think it's relevant for like a lot of the age range and demographic here, knowing that you've been wildly successful on the business side, serial entrepreneur. Even looking back, it was really fascinating to hear you say, I should have slowed down in my early 20s. What did you mean by that?
Well, exactly that. I was looking for the shortcuts, right? Like I spent, $5,000 on a real estate guru boot camp. And then, first of all, 90, probably 8% of those things are not worth half, a quarter, 10% of the price that they charge. Okay. But they're definitely not worth it if you don't do anything on the other side of it. Right. And so like looking for the easy money, the quick wins, the shortcuts, that I suffered a lot from that for maybe longer than I should have. And it had to do with, whether it was in my professional career, like, wanting the next job too soon and then hopping jobs or hopping companies because I couldn't be patient. Or in my early days of like doing my own deals or trying to get out on my own in real estate, just trying to make the quick buck, and there's no easy money, like
right. Yeah. And then that makes sense that you say that. And Maddie, do you want to chime in before I ask my next question?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is something I think all people need to kind of evolve or mature through, right? Which is this: we all have this. We want to get to the finish line, and we want to do it faster than we see everybody else doing it.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where there's an abundance of people who will promise to get you to that finish line faster.
Yeah.
spoken very easily from someone who's standing at the finish line, but when you're not there, it's difficult. And you see the same thing in fitness, right? Here's how you get six-pack abs. Just take this pill or buy this little widget. But to your point, most of them are junk.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't do anything with it, what's the point? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that one of the things that I really loved hearing you say was you said, okay, I'm going to dive in here and not just learn, the real estate aspect of it, but you said, go pick up a hammer.
Mm.
At the end of the day, there's a level of competency that is just simply required, and you cannot
Yeah.
shortcut learning it, whatever
Yep.
it is.
Right.
So with that, my question to you would be, if you were talking to yourself, let's just hit the easy button and say you'd listen.
Mm.
What? Because you're right, you can't shortcut, but there are tricks to the trade,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And what kind of coaching, what advice would you have given yourself now in that stage?
Yeah. So what I started to do in the second half of my career, let's say, was I started to put in what I called like the next safety net levels. So like I worked at Merrill, right? And I got myself to, a certain income and job title and skill set at Merrill Lynch, right? Or actually in the financial services industry. I hopped around a little. So I kind of like put that in. Okay, that's my new baseline. Now I know I can go make 90 grand, 100 grand. I can be a sales rep, a product manager, at a financial services firm. I know I can go do that. That gives me the baseline to go do what I did next, which was quit all that stuff and go strap on a tool belt and say, all right, well, I want to get in the real estate game. I better learn this from the ground up. And so but I had the backdrop of, and I also say this too. I still say this today. I could do anything for a year. Like the Forge blows up, and my these 4 real estate deals I have that need to pay off, and this all stuff blows up. I could do anything for a year. I can go back to corporate America, make a nice salary at this point with my skill set and experience and all that stuff. Like I go work for somebody else. I can do anything for a year.
Yeah.
And like you have to have that mindset in order to be able to take those, because there are risks, right? Like entrepreneurship and starting your own business and doing your first real estate deal. Man, the stuff is risky. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a foundation set so you can step out and take those risks confidently.
What I love about what you said is you made it practical, because too often in this day and age you hear burn all the ships, all nothing, and it's like not even thinking about the practical aspects of this. And so your version is building that foundation, knowing you have to go a skill set that you can go back to and make money. Another version of mine is I've found a job that allows me to work 100% remote. That gives me flexibility to have a solid income, but insane freedom to be able to be at a 2:30 on a Thursday talking to your beautiful self.
I love that. And that's what's way different from when I was going through my, corporate, journey. That's so different and so huge. It's huge,
man. It's huge.
And to some degree, there was that. Like when it was time to walk, it's like, all right, man. I was working for a commercial real estate company. I was making nice money, and it was like, I better be sure about this move, right? Because I had a young family, and it's not 100%. Like you go out on your own. Someone's not depositing that money in your bank every 2 weeks. Like that's no joke when you take that step. So hang on to that, hang on to that W-2 job, for almost as long as you can.
That's what
I just realized. I don't want I got to grab my charger.
No. It's all good. It's all good.
Rookie move.
It's all good. Great conversation. All right. I knew this would be a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
So my throat is killing me.
Yeah, you said you had strep, right?
They said it wasn't strep because it was a viral version of it, but I mean, it was the same. It was strep, but viral.
Crazy throat infection thing.
Like I could barely swallow, bro, and my eyes are still just destroyed.
I'm sorry, man.
Totally cool.
I can't be the first guy to do that, am I? No.
Oh, we've had a phone completely die on the podcast. What are you
Absolutely.
talking about?
We've also done it ourselves many times. So yeah,
I've
you're in
screwed
good
this
company.
thing so many times. It's beyond. I can't even count anymore how many times I've screwed this podcast up. But what you were saying, I just appreciate that, because there are far too many people in your position that I think give bad advice. Like, listen, risk is a thing, and I'm in this camp. Other people are in the other camp, and that's totally fine. But why not take calculated risk when you're afforded that? And then, to your point, and this is something I want to point out, because this message cannot be said enough in Web3. There is no easy money. Let's take what recently happened. 12-year-old kid flicking the camera off, made 30 grand on a meme coin. He rugged everybody. Guess what that kid did not realize? If you technically define that was easy 30 grand in seconds, that kid has totally fucked his life for at least the next year. Not only is there legal implications, but this dude is now all over the internet. He just doesn't understand the implications of just the hate this dude's gonna get and the shit that he's gonna deal with. So technically,
He doesn't understand reputation.
Right,
and he
right.
will.
Reputation is huge. And then to the point about you getting excited about my remote and having flexibility, people think like, oh, I want that, and that scenario sounds awesome. But it's like, yeah, I grinded corporate America for 15 years to afford me a position like this. And the only reason I afforded a position like this is I gained that skill set. And one of the best skill sets I gained was how to play the game.
Yeah.
Because the only reason I have my job I have now is I made the relationships with the right people. So it all looks fine on paper, but what people don't talk about is the rubber met the road for a long time before that. So that this message cannot be stressed enough.
Yeah, and I think let me hop in on the like burn the boats, okay? Because same thing. Like there's perspective on everything.
Yep.
You know, looking back, what I did well in the second half of my career was was building up the next foundation, and the next safety net was higher. And I always knew in a worst case, I could take that step back and go back to doing what I was doing before.
Right.
And that's foundational and everything else. At the same time, there is an element of burning the boats. Like when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you just have to understand, like when you hear that term, I actually love the term. I heard it for the first time, like not all that long ago, maybe, within the last couple of years, let's say. And I love the idea of it. But when you're talking about career moves, and especially like once you have a family and you have some obligations,
right,
man, like you got to do the right thing,
Yeah, there's context, right?
Yes.
It's way more nuanced than saying it, and people just say it. Right?
A 19-year-old version of ourselves burning the boats and going all in is very different than a 40-year-old version of ourselves. And yeah, of course, it's like you'll see these people that tell stories, yeah, I got into real estate. It was super easy. I just sold all 30 years of my 401k. That was my entire nest egg for my retirement, bought a house, and it worked. And it's like, well, okay, but maybe not the best advice for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, yeah, exactly. Context is a big part of that for sure. And one thing you said that I really liked was when I asked what you would go back and do is I think that a lot of people chase after titles or positions rather than skills. And you developed a lot of skills which allow you to be able to say, now I can do anything for a year, because you know what you're doing, and that's important.
And you're looking for insights, right? And like the aha moments. And for me, the aha moment was living down in New Jersey. I think I was 24-year-old kid making real nice money. I was in this, talk about title. This is what brought it up in my mind. I was an assistant vice president at Merrill Lynch. Okay. And like, by all accounts, I had made it. You know what I mean? I'm working at asset management headquarters in Princeton, New Jersey. Like, I'm on the internal wholesaling desk. I'm the youngest guy there by 3 or 4 years. Like, the world is my oyster.
Right.
But guys, miserable getting out of bed every day.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God I had this like little glimmer of recognition. I say this, man, all the time. I had this little glimmer of recognition, like, man, there has to be more. Like, I'm not cut out for this. I had this thing deep down in my gut, no matter how banged up I was like, man, this isn't right. Like, this is supposed to be it. I'm supposed to be on the road. And like, I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, not just because I'm a hungover, but like the motivation to get out of bed and go to work. I'm like, there's got to be more,
Right.
and I always say, like, I'm so glad here. So here's a burn the boats moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I was 24 and I could do it.
Right.
I was like, I kind of made that decision. Not at that time. It took another probably year for me to like feel enough pain and get out. But that's what I did. I walked away from finance. And I went to work in the construction business. I went to work for a friend of my family's. The guy was like a small, like, remodeling, a little bit of new construction. And I went to work for that guy for $100 a day cash.
Wow.
As a laborer, like no skill. Like I fixed some stuff up around the house with my old man over the years, but like no real skills. I learned that business from the ground up. And the reason why is because, and like I always say to myself, like, it's because I was young enough to be able to do that. Like I saw those other guys on the sales desk I was working on, and they were stuck. They already had the kid in the beach house and the extra car, and they had to just keep working for the man, And like, I know that's a blessing in my life. That like, I saw that. I saw very clearly like what that path was like. And I was blessed to be in a position at that time to say, no, not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I can afford to go, make this big move. And I did. I had that kind of like in my back pocket. I'm going, I can always go back to work in financial services.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give this real estate thing a shot.
Yeah. And depending on your age, to your point, like that, the burn the bridges moment exists. But I think the message that I want people to sit with and resonate to is, even if you're in your 40s, it's possible. It might be harder.
For sure.
And you might need to be more calculated about it, but there are possibilities. And I just think we can't talk about this enough. So thank you so much for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
I want to move a little bit later on in the career, because I feel like there's a lot of these realizations towards the later on part of your career. So we've talked about you're quitting, you're having these epiphanies. I think it's so important, and to reiterate this too, is that realization that there has to be more. That comes in very different forms for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always had that too. And I'm sure Maddie would say the same thing too, there are some people that sit in corporate America and they're like, I'm perfectly content. And that's okay. I'm not saying you're a bad person for that, but I've always had that itch that there has to be more. And I think that's a core to a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, are trying to, at least, I mean, I would say entrepreneurs a side hustle too. They don't have to create a huge enterprise, right?
Totally.
So that is fundamental, I think, for that mindset. So take us through the later part of your career before we get into Web3, because I want to spend time there as well. Give us some more insights in success, failures, wherever you want to go, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, the one thing I got right at that time, like when I left financial services and, and got into the construction business, the way it all went down was I was still living in New Jersey. I knew I wanted to move back to Boston. I bought my first house creatively, not exactly, Carlton Sheets, no money down style, but I did my first creative real estate deal. I bought this house. I was on like a big piece of land, big in the Boston area. It was like, a half acre, and that meant there was a quarter acre that I could sell to the neighbor out back who was like a Greek farmer guy. So, but anyways, like I did this deal, to a really creative real estate deal, and I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love. I'm like, this is what I need to do. It was, it was everything that the financial services job wasn't. You know what I mean? Like it was exciting. I'm like, there's real value here. And so, so it was both things. It was a really good move. But immediately that's when I then first, I bought the first guru course, and I thought I'm going to go,
This is
go
it.
make them. Yeah, I'm going to go make $1 million in real estate with like no money. You know what I mean? And tripped for a while on that whole thing, but the point was like at least was making a living, right? Was making a living and learning a trade, which would be really useful in my career, my real estate career as I moved forward from there. And that was very intentional by me, like, because I always thought, like at that time, I thought a career in real estate meant maybe I'll own a few 3 families, right? Like some apartments around town, small apartment buildings. And like, wow, if I really make it big, like maybe I would like develop a strip mall. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's what a career in real estate really was.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, if I'm going to own real estate, right, like I better understand how it's put together. And like, I didn't set out to like build some huge construction company, but I set out to learn the trade. And so then like, in the future, as I'm hiring people to fix stuff at like if I can't do it myself, hiring people to fix it, I make sure I get a good price. It's done properly. I can do my own inspections going in, understand if, is this a well-built house, that type of thing. And so it was, that started the like really, truly intentional part, let's say, of my like sort of career path was like, okay, I want to get in this real estate game. I'm going to literally learn it from the ground up.
So I think you said 2 really important things there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And I don't even know if you realize you said it, but you were really excited about that first real estate deal. So what I interpret that is passion.
Yes.
And then 2, you talked about this small leveling up and you were learning. Talk to me about the importance of those, or maybe expand upon those 2 concepts.
Oh yeah, so important. And now, like, again, I'm not like a hype guy, or like I'm not trying to like be some like guru mentor or whatever, but like talking about like the people you're trying to reach on this podcast, like this is, I mean, you hit it right to the bone. Passion and learn it from the ground up. I mean, I screwed up, right? And it took me a while to get there. And even once I got there, I tripped all over myself. Like I'm not trying to say I did it all perfectly out of the gate. I had a lot of help along the way. But that's the thing. Like find something you're passionate about and learn it from the ground up. And anyways, I'll just speak for myself, because you said it a minute ago, Mikey. It's really important. There are some people, I'm not built this way, but there are some people who like, they're actually happy to have a job that they can go to from 9 to 5 and be done with it when they walk.
Right.
Like they get in their car at 5 o'clock and they go take the dog for a walk, or they go to the park, or they do this or they do that. And they're very happy to be collecting a guaranteed paycheck and have their bills paid. And like, that's it. They're no huge career ambitions, entrepreneur ambitions. Like that's fine. They're very happy to have the money they need to live.
Yeah.
And, but what I found is like, I'm not built that way. It's somehow soul crushing to me, the way I'm built. That's what I learned in New Jersey is like, it doesn't matter. Like the fact that I'm making really good money, I'm on my way and I'm at a good company and I have good prospects. Like that stuff didn't matter because I wasn't passionate about what it was I was going to work to do every day.
It's amazing how much passion comes up and how it gets you through these tough times, right?
Yes.
Maddie, do you have anything to add here, or do we want to move?
Yeah, just a quick one. So when you say start from the ground up and develop those skills, I 100% agree with that. However, as you start that process, you realize there's actually a lot of skills involved, and not all of them are skills you might be passionate about. So for example, running a business, you can love real estate, you could even love the construction side of it, but you may not like bookkeeping a lot.
Right.
You may not like, whatever it might be, taxes or things like that. So how do you, because you can't do everything at 100%. What is the method you have found to delegate those things in a way that's worked for you? I'm always curious at this because, we tend to kind of stay in our lanes, and I'm just curious how you've managed that.
Man, you hit me where it hurts. You know what I mean? Like Maddie, I still don't do it well. All right. I still don't do it well. It's because, and by the way, the things you mentioned are exactly the things I struggle with. Taxes, accounting.
I mentioned them because I suck at it too.
Right.
That's what I struggled with as a business.
So here's where like you have to decide. You have to decide like how much you want to scale. Like scale is important to talk about. So like when I was running my little construction business, I got away with being like not good at all those things because there wasn't much scale to what it was I was doing. But that's because I wasn't setting out to build like the next, Delbrook or whatever, pick whatever huge construction company.
Yeah.
If I was, I need to set up the systems, processes, hire the people, right? Like do all that stuff. That's actually one thing that I'm not very good. I'm not very good at scale. So like I'm a visionary guy, right? Like I know from the high level, like what I want to build, what I'm setting out to do. I see how the pieces can come together. And then my way of being is to learn these things from the ground up as well. So like I call those like the line jobs. Like when it comes to real estate, I can literally like any line job that you can think of in the real estate development and finance business, I could do any of them. Underwriting, loan servicing, closing coordinators, origination, like literally any of the line jobs, I could do any one of them. And I'm really good up here too. But like I fail miserably in middle management, like development of processes, you know what I mean? Things like that. So, if you can figure that out, let me know. And my advice is, similar to, a little tangent we were on earlier, partnering up with the right people, or in this case, either hiring the right outside firms if you can outsource it, or building a team around you if it's in-house and you're actually building a company. Like just make sure to bring people in who are very good in their own disciplines, because you're exactly right. Most entrepreneurs and doers, right, get really bad or really hung up in the weeds of some of those detailed things. So you have to take care of those things.
Yeah. Thanks for being honest, man, because I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with too, because you take on this big mountain of work because you think you can do it all and you quickly realize you can't.
I'm laughing so hard because I literally had a meeting in this office today. Somebody else was sitting in this chair. I was sitting at my desk, which is behind the camera. And I threw a 3-ring binder at the guy. We were having this as a mentor of mine, and I told him my next step in this completely separate business. I don't even want to get into it, but I have this 3-ring binder on my desk of Massachusetts regulations having to do with behavioral health companies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a co-owner and a partner in this substance use treatment business. And by necessity, I've kind of gotten involved. Okay.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, I'm slogging through some of this stuff because while I can figure it out, right, I do bring to bear some experience and some corporate finance and some like sort of structured things that I can bring to bear. Like, I don't have any experience in this field specifically. And I literally threw the book at him and I was like, look what's on my desk right now. Do you think I should be reading these rules and regs to think about the next expansion project here? Or do you think I need to hire a program director?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So anyways, that's why I literally laugh, because I'm like, as I sit here still tripping over, some of the same stuff.
So another way to ask the question, and I'm interested in what you would say, because we've talked to people in all different trades. And I think depending on the trade and you being a leader, like I would say construction is leadership there is different than finance, right?
Sure.
Or marketing or a creative shop.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, when you're hiring, what do you look for? Because you hear this narrative a lot of like experience matters, but also the individual matters more. So what are your thought processes there, and what do you look out for the people that you want to work with?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll say, it depends. Okay. So it depends on, let's say, like the vertical, like I said, I'm involved in a few different businesses. So in real estate, if let's say I'm looking to scale up my real estate lending business again, right?
Yeah.
And so I need to hire in for that. So there, what I would tell you is individual matters, right? Because I understand and can mentor and guide and help watch out for pitfalls, right? So like my management team in that business, I would hire for the individual,
Right.
100%. Over here in the addiction treatment business that I just mentioned to you, I have zero experience, and so I need somebody with the experience. I can't take a risk on a person, even if I love them and I think they're a perfect fit for this job, if they can figure it out. That last
Yeah.
part is the most important point that I said. If they can figure it out, right?
Right.
Because I'm in that side of the world. I'm a co-owner. I'm an advisor to this business.
Yeah.
I can't drag that person by the hand and like show them what to do or help them avoid pitfalls. I need them to tell me, actually, right?
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
that case, I'm very clearly hiring for experience.
No, I think that's a great great answer, because I think a lot of the narrative that you hear now is like it's all about the individual, and you know, if you vibe with them and if they're an analytical thinker and can figure things out, it doesn't matter. That's the person you want to hire, and
So
there's practical elements to that as well.
yeah, look, but I'd give some grace there, right? Because if you're talking like about Web3, right, which is like, you know, sort of where you're grounded at the minute,
Right.
you know, don't forget all that shit's new.
Yeah.
So everybody's figuring it out as they go along. Do you know?
Yeah.
And Vibe does, and because I don't know, I also don't want to downplay, you know, Vibe and personality fit and all that. Like that's super important,
Right.
especially if you're building a small team,
Mhm.
right? The interpersonal stuff is incredibly important. So
Mhm.
I don't want to toss it aside. And that's why I say like industry by industry or vertical by vertical, like it does, you know,
Yeah.
it will certainly matter in that Web3 bent of like, and that's all my sort of my hot take, right? Reaction to your, it's all about the vibe, man. Like I you know, I agree with that to some degree if you're talking about something as new as you know, Web3 stuff.
So I wasn't particularly relating it to Web3. I was saying in general, what I read about how you should effectively hire, it's about the individual and vibes, and
Yeah.
are they an analytical thinker, and not so much context, do they understand the industry? And it's carved out as more as a black and white thing. What I'm getting at is what
Yeah.
you said was very helpful, because you gave two different answers based on context.
Yeah.
And I don't think people talk enough about context, and the fact that context can produce two different outcomes of what you're looking for. Everyone, again, back to the beginning, we're coming full circle, is trying to find always a catch-all answer, a quick fix as to how do I effectively hire? Well, there isn't a clean answer there, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maddie, anything you got?
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. At the end of the day, you can have the right person in the right job. You can have the right person in the wrong job, right? You can have the wrong person in the right job, and this creates this matrix of possibilities. And at the end of the day, yeah, I think context matters. And then on top of that, some hard lessons Mike and I have learned. I'm sure you can relate to this, but you can have somebody who's incredibly competent, but if you can't trust them, then you know, it doesn't really matter, right? And
Yeah.
so there's a
Give an
lot of
answer.
litmus tests for all of these things that
Yeah.
you have to figure out. And you know, you might hire the right person, but if they turn around and, you know, end up hurting you, it's not beneficial.
Yeah. And look, I'll tell you, like I could tell you, you know, I'm a big I own my own stuff, right? Like I gotta own my end of it, I say.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of times I can hire the right person for the right job, but
Yeah.
actually I didn't communicate clearly enough to them what my expectations were.
Huge.
You know what I mean?
It's big.
And so like, yeah, like of course they show up, then they have to deliver. You got to be trustworthy and all that stuff. But like, you know, I need to set proper expectations. Job description, super important. Boundaries, super important, right?
Yeah.
Especially in startups, because like in startups, there's this like all hands on deck. You got to wear many hats type of, you know, mentality, and that's true to a point. But like I'm telling you right now, it's one of the reasons why I struggle with scale, because like I haven't pushed really through that all hands on deck. Everybody's wearing multiple hats, like, you know, type of phase. So expectations are huge. You know, setting expectations from the management side is huge.
Yep. Love it. All right. So let's do this. We already have had an amazing conversation. I have incredible context of who you are as a human being. Let's talk about very short couple minutes about how you found Web3,
Yeah.
And then let's get into the forge, man. I'm excited to hear this journey.
I got a fun origin story for Web3. So actually, I was working at the commercial mortgage company, and I read my first paper on Bitcoin, and it must have been 2014 or 15 at the latest, because I left the mortgage company in 15. So start reading up on distributed ledger technology. I'm like, man, this is like tailor made for blockchain. I meant for real estate. And at the time, I was thinking title ownership. Titles to real estate is it's an absolute mess, and it's a joke. Like I hate it. I'm like, every time I buy a property, I have to pay, in the Massachusetts, attorneys do title searches. We don't have escrow companies. So I have to pay an attorney to do a title search. Or what's even worse is, like, I could buy it, and then if I refinance it next year, I have to pay the attorney to go search the title again. And worse than that, then I have to pay for a title insurance policy every time I buy or refinance a property.
It's insane.
It's insanity, right? So anyways, that's going to take a long time to fix. That's not what we're here to talk about and whatever else. But anyways, I just saw, I'm like, ooh, I understood what distributed ledger technology was. Yeah. I understood immediately its relevance for real estate, and then even capital markets and lending and all the rest. So sad to say, I didn't buy any Bitcoin in 2014.
I've heard stories of people buying it and selling it.
Yeah. Or using it with pizza, right?
Yeah.
But I did. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2016. Fast forward now, I've got Touchstone up and running. I'm out on my own. I've got this kid. So I had a woman working with me in the office. She was doing like clerical, and at the time we were selling some units and stuff. So she was a licensed realtor, and so she was doing showings and all that. Anyways, her son came to work like as an intern for the summer, and he was in college at the time, and Bitcoin was all the craze. It was Thanksgiving 2016, right? Like, do you remember that? 16, and then I think it was January. Boom!
Yeah. And it all fell apart.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening right now?
So I bought exactly. Yes, exactly. So I bought the Pico top of Bitcoin in 16. Okay. I bought a few coins. I bought Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and like maybe one or two others.
Right.
And like, you see it all over the timeline, right? Like, but I literally put the ledger in a drawer and forgot about it.
Nice.
And then 2020, was it 20? Shiba Inu, like the first craze of Shiba. I go to a cookout on Memorial Day, and my cousin, a pipe fitter, is telling me how he bought, 1 billion Shiba Inu tokens for $400, and it's going to be worth 4 million by the end of the summer. And I was like, oh my God, it's here. Like, again, this was all like, these jokes are commonplace now, but this is real. Yeah. This was my real experience.
Right.
Buy the Pico top coming out of Thanksgiving, and everyone's at home talking to family and friends about Bitcoin, all the other smashing crash. Just absolutely dejected. Like, what the hell did I do? That was a waste of 15 grand, to waking up and saying, oh my God, retail, everyone's interested. My cousin, the pipe fitter, is interested. Like, maybe, maybe adoption is here, and I better pay attention again. So I broke out the ledger. The stuff was worth, like, if I had put 15 grand into it, it was now worth like 18 grand. Right. But it was like legitimately $18,000 of like found money. And so, like, that was the beginning for me of my true Web3 journey, blockchain journey. I got involved with Shiba Inu. They had their DEX coming out at the time. I participated in the liquidity event for the DEX, and like I just went all in, like balls deep, meme coin at the time. Well, they called it meme altcoins at the time.
Yeah.
And just had a ton of fun there from 20 to 21. At one point I turned 20 grand of purchases in this coin called Saitama. At the top, it was worth $1.6 million. Like, I have screenshots of that shit on my computer. Wrote it all the way back down. Not all the way. I certainly took some cash out. Thanks to my wife, actually. She's like, "You gotta sell that shit." I'm like, "It's gonna keep going." I made all the mistakes, guys. I made all the mistakes. You know what I mean?
What do you
I didn't write it all the way
think
back
that
down.
is?
I made some money.
Like, tell me, because I feel like if I saw $1.6 million in something, I'd be like, "You're fuck right. I am taking this out."
Yeah.
Tell me what that is like. Like,
Greed.
what is your brain telling you?
The markets run on fear and greed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
telling us it's going to be $3 million tomorrow. That's
like the wallet's not even out yet. They were bringing out a wallet, right? And when that was a sexy thing to do.
Right.
And I'm like, the wallet's not. I had no idea about the FOMO cycles, about the market cycles, like all that. Even though I'm a finance guy, like I had never seen that chart, the fear and greed, and the cycle of a market. Like I hadn't done any of that research yet. All I knew was like this was just based on I mean, think about how naive this sounds now, right?
Right.
But what I'm about to say is, at the time, my feeling was, man, if it went this far on the hype, imagine how much further it's going to go when they drop the wallet, when they actually have this wallet and they start making money and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it was like,
that explains it. But then, the reverse psychology is once it starts dwindling, you're like, oh, it's going to go back up.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, just with, the wallet was delayed, but it's coming. It's just classic stuff,
Oh, man, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So yeah, man, what a trip that was, though. And it got me in, right? Like it got me in. So then I rotated from that stuff. That got me into the Sappy Seals ecosystem. And like I think right at the beginning of 21, I didn't mint a Sappy Seals, but like I became a Sappy Seal kind of whale, early on in their ecosystem. And then ultimately that introduced me to Pawns and the Plague, and here we are today.
So obviously you don't need to take us through like the every step of the evolution of the Forge, but tell me, you've got 2 minutes or less for people that haven't heard of the Forge. What is the Forge?
So what is the Forge, or how did I get there?
No, what is the Forge? We're going into what is the Forge now.
Got it. So we minted an NFT collection, PFPs, really cool art on ETH almost a year ago, like the beginning of this year. And it is the beginnings of basically a real estate investment, and let's call it education community. In the background, what we're working on is bridging my real estate private equity business, Touchstone, bridging that to the blockchain. But the thing is, we've talked about this a little already, like my drive is not at this point monetary, right? Like if I just wanted to make more money, I would create institutional investable products. Like I already know that if that's what I wanted to do, I would just like run up the scale inside of the real estate game and like go attract money from hedge funds, private equity, right?
Yeah.
What I saw with blockchain and especially Web3 with the community aspect is this ability to decentralize this opportunity to invest in real estate, right? Yeah. I've seen with my own eyes now, right? And in my own career, real wealth is made and maintained in real estate investing, like, and it's been true for generations. Yeah. And like, you go back to my origin, my own, origin story. Like my parents never had a chance. Like we lived in a 2-family growing up. I told you, right? And we sold it when I was in the 5th grade, and we moved to a single family house. Like, can you imagine? Like my parents sold that 2-family house in Quincy for $20,000. That house today would sell for like $1.3 million. Can you imagine, like, if my parents had found a way to keep that as a rental and move us into the new house, right? But they just didn't have that ability. Like you needed the cash from the sale of the one house to buy the other. And so, but now what if you had a way to give people exposure to real estate investments like that at a much smaller scale? Right. And that's what I see as the magic of where, blockchain meets real estate private equity. There's securities and regulations, stuff that you have to worry about. But this is like what I would call true crowdfunding. Yeah. And the opportunity inside the Forge is to come be part of the, first and foremost, be part of the community. Are you guys familiar with Bigger Pockets? Biggerpockets.com. They're like one of the original like blog, like commute, like sort of message board, sort of like communities, real estate investing. And those guys are awesome, man. I would want to build the Bigger Pockets, let's say, of Web3.
Gotcha.
A place where you can come. There's real people who have done real deals, and like you don't get gurus selling courses on there, because the real guys who are doing real deals in the community call out the scammers as soon as they show up.
I love it.
Yeah.
So breakdowns, because I think there can be confusion, and I think this is a topic that I want to talk on our RWA spaces. We actually pitched Maximilian. I think the next space that I want to do is bring in big NFT projects and then legal people like our boy Vinay and talk about what mistakes made in the NFT space can we learn to make sure we don't make them in the RWA space. And so one of the things that I want to know is the natural evolution of making an NFT when you're trying to do this forge in RWA to create this PFP project. And I think from a consumer perspective, there might have been, even though you might have spelled it out, the assumption is if I buy a PFP, I'm getting revenue of some form.
Yeah.
And I am now invested in real estate. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So take me through your decision to make the PFP, lessons learned about messaging, what's actually being delivered by being part of this ecosystem. Because I think that's a hard nut to crack, right?
It is, man. It really is. And it starts with regulatory. Okay. So that's why like the PFP mint. So let's just be clear about what it was and what it is so we have, a collection of art, right? We put them on non-fungible tokens, and then people pay to mint them, and it's a collectible, right? And so like the project collects the money from the person who minted it, and then the goal of the forge is to build this little real estate investor community. And then in the background, the tech that we're pulling together to bridge the real estate private equity business to the blockchain will eventually merge up with the forge community, right? In a way that, and this is why we have the different characters, architects, blacksmiths, miners. You want to engage in the ecosystem in different ways. You might be an investor, right? Like you might get, like one of the things for sure is access to deals, right? So like the ability to invest in real estate deals. We're going to need like a little, like sort of, let's call it like a little mini sales force, right? Like we need people out there on the timeline trying to attract, TVL is the, to like once we roll out our actual tech product, which needs to attract capital in order to invest in real estate deals. We're going to need people to, help us market that. And so the original reason to do an NFT collection is to bootstrap the build out of the company.
Right.
And yeah, for sure. Some people, I mean, you get all types, right? Like you're minting, I can't remember how we minted 1,000 of them. I don't know how many unique people we had, right? But you're going to get all types. You're going to get people who think they own a piece of the company. You're going to get people who, want to have a lot of input. You're going to get people who just don't care. They say, hey, I minted this for, 0.01 ETH and I want to be able to sell it for at least, a half an ETH or, whatever, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, like try to make it very clear that the idea here is you're funding an idea, right? The use of the funds will be to help us figure out how to bridge this business to the blockchain. Yeah. And your NFT represents your entrance into the community, right? Like, because like legally, that's all it can be. Like I can't sell shares in the company, right? Like I can't drive revenue back to NFT holders right now as it stands, right? Like we have a lot of ways we've kicked around to, head in that direction and make sure we don't trip any regulatory wires we don't want to trip. But yeah, that's it's hard, right? It's hard to like what's the really what you're asking is what's the value proposition,
right?
And ultimately that's why from my perspective, it's also why I'm here, is because the whole point is like to make this mission driven, right? And to make this community based. This isn't about raising more money from the people who minted the NFTs, right? Like I said, if it was just about raising capital, I'd go, do the Wall Street thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot more fun here. I like people here. I want to give people an opportunity here. And so, and also too, like, I'm not just giving opportunity, but it is a, let's say, I thought it's not turning out to be the case. I thought it was an easier path to capital.
No.
Yeah.
Most Web3 founders will tell you that don't ever become a Web3 founder.
Yeah, exactly. No, Pons tried to talk me out of it, like right up until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's cool, what you said, and Matt, I'll let you chime in because I want to reiterate this. Remember where I started and said what we do here is about community and relationships? And that's literally just what you said is why you did this.
Yeah.
And that is the message people need to hear. Yes, there's money to be made and everything. But my original thesis had always been this is fundamentally going to change how brands and communities are built. And it's happening because of people like you. And because of people like Pons and because of people like my district and JR who I'm working with. So thank you for doing that. Just our heartfelt thank you for that. That's all I wanted to say. Maddie, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I think that, man, there's a lot to unpackage here, but at the end of the day, by building this community, what you're doing is you're bringing more exposure to these concepts to people who could benefit from them. Because to your point, I agree with you. Real estate is the ultimate long game, right? It's land. It's like it's kind of the peak, right? However, there's already a community of people, a very big fish that play in that field. And they don't care about another $4.8 million investment or three. They're just moving numbers around. The building I manage is owned by Goldman Sachs. It's all numbers. They don't care. At the end of the day, at the end of the year, they're looking at how those numbers work. It makes money for them. To your point, you already have access to that group, that community. I really think it's important because going back to your uncle's statement, right? You need both people. You need people that are saving the world, like, as a nurse, and then you need people writing the checks. But if they don't know they have access to this, because it's a massive gap to bridge to jump into real estate. And I think just more people understanding, hey, there are people out there who are trying to help you get access to that. It's massive. Because to your point, look, if your parents have been able to keep that house, look what a difference that would make. So even a small little bit of this knowledge can save or really, really improve the people's lives in the future financially.
Yeah, man. And I got to say, like, that's one thing we haven't done, well enough is building that side of it. We went heads down and I thought we didn't raise as much capital as we would have liked from the mint. We had our struggles, market headwinds, tech stuff, whatever it was. Then what we learned sort of like over the summer was, so then I go to like the VC network, right, to try to raise that next tranche of capital without giving away more than we want to give away or bringing on VCs that, the whole point here is like, I don't want to deal with those guys. You know what I mean? And so, but I will say that's the pivot to the RWA spaces and trying to, share the knowledge and break these things down. Like that's been a positive. But I think, if I think about like what's next for the Forge, this idea of trying to find a way to build that real estate investor community, let people know, open people's eyes, demystify things a little bit, I think is something that we could spend some time on and be a little better at.
Well, it's something that you're uniquely, you have unique knowledge on, right? You just said you could do every baseline skill set in this. So, who better to help facilitate that coaching?
Yeah. And so let me ask this to both of you, because you're both in the real estate, because I think the other opportunity to layer on that is my expectations, and I could be wrong, but in the real estate community, it's a more of a sharky environment, right? And it is not community based. So I think that makes that value prop even more pertinent and strong if you can connect to the right people in the real estate space to say, hey, we're doing it different. Come join our mission, right? Am I off there? Am I right? Or
the first part 100% is correct, meaning, it's a capital intensive game. And so you can call them sharks or, whatever, but even, the guy I mentioned that was sitting in my office here early today, accomplished individual, incredibly successful real estate developer, is in the part of his career now where, he's looking to diversify and put money to work. And I ran him through some deals today, and I wouldn't call him a shark, but he's an incredibly sharp investor. Right. And so, it's cutthroat, it's this, it's that, it's capital intensive, and people are looking out for their capital. So I think that's 100% true. Right. And then so what you find is the operators, right, or the guys like me who are, putting the deals together, right? I'm kind of that bridge between the money and the deals. And so what you find, with those operators sometimes they're called promoters, you tap into this vein of capital, and then that's it. Now your entire deal flow, every good deal you get, you send it to the reliable capital. And so these silos get built up, and it's very inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so, the second part of your question, Mikey, let me ask you to kind of clarify what you mean, because cracking into that ecosystem, right, and expecting, Wall Street guys to, give up some returns or let the little guys into the same funds they're in or something, that's probably not going to happen.
Right. So I actually think the question more is, in this, what you confirmed is it's capital intensive. People are obviously protective about there's large sums of money. It's competitive. We know that there is a space of seeing benefit from community driven, given people that aren't in that ecosystem opportunities at a lower cost to be involved in real estate. My question is, of this higher capital people and the people in this ecosystem, can community impact that industry? Can community, like Web3 does, we think, for the common man, absolutely impact real estate? But is there community aspects that are being missed that could maybe open up your funnel a little bit more? Does that make sense? Is it even relevant to them, or is it just a complete lost cause?
Yeah, it's not relevant to the guys are throwing around, guys and girls, funds, whatever. To those who are throwing around that type of money, look, there's, I'm sure you've heard of ESG investing, right? That was all the craze, relatively recently. So there's a case to be made in there, maybe socially responsible real estate investing, maybe there's a play there. Part of one of the things that's on my roadmap, actually, from Mukti Labs, is to incorporate in the U.S. They have a special structure called a B Corp, and it's a type of LLC that's like a cross between a for-profit LLC and a nonprofit. It's really, it's super hard. We could spend time on this. We don't have to dive down this rabbit hole, but for anyone who's interested, if you look up B Corp, B like the letter B, CORP, it's a for-profit entity, and you can take investments and investors who are interested in making a return, but you have to adhere to a few set of rules that are kind of similar to nonprofits. You have to publish a P&L, you have to publish a mission statement, and then prove, that you're committing and actually acting on that mission statement. But anyways, that's I think a potentially powerful place to go that's heading towards what you're asking about.
Yeah.
To absolutely attract capital at scale, let's call it conscious capital, right?
Yeah.
Capital that gives a shit, the type of people who would invest in an ESG type of fund. This B Corp structure is very interesting to me to see how that can be mixed in to raise capital in the real estate world.
Yeah, no, that's a practical way of getting at what I was talking about. Maddie, I know you probably have a rack of questions and we could go for another couple hours, but I want to give you a chance to chime in.
I think I'll be quick because of time. I to your point, yeah, right. Like the moguls pushing around, commercial spaces in Manhattan for sure. Like it's just bottom feeding at that point but I think there is like a level, a step one, a step two, and in especially like residential real estate, when people decide, what are these duplexes and triplexes? I do think some of that stuff, quite frankly, the whales just it's below their radar.
Mm.
And in a community aspect in that arena, I do think might be able to grab some traction just simply because it's attainable for, like, I hate to say it, but like just the average person.
Sure.
Right. And I think that there might be something there. That I think is very interesting to me because that's such a big stepping stone. You
Hmm.
had your first real estate deal that made you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
That turned into like, hey, wow, you can make money doing this. I made a
Hmm.
play here.
Hmm.
And I think that might be all it needs to spark some people to get that interest. Well, there's something to be had here. That just
Hmm.
for my 2 cents.
So let's do this. I know we're getting close to time here. Want to wind down. I always like to end kind of episode 3. We always have one question towards the end. It's a softball. Don't get nervous. But before I ask that question, next 3 to 6 months for the Forge and Doc in general, what are you looking at? What are you excited about? Anything you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about the traction in RWAs. I'll even take a step back from that and say, crypto in general. I was in New York City on Tuesday for a conference. Benzinga puts it on. They're like, it's so funny. You talk about perspective, right? Benzinga supposedly is like the people's conference. Like they want to take, trading tools and ideas and all these things and get them available to the individual investor, like to the what they call the little guy.
Yeah.
Meaning like, not a hedge fund who can pay for, high speed trading, all that other stuff, but like bring the tools down and make them available to quote unquote retail.
Right.
But retail to them is like, still probably a guy with $1 million investable. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wants like a trading terminal at his house or whatever. But it was, I don't mean to bash Benzinga. It was a really good conference. They had 2 stages going. One was on fintech and the other one was on digital assets. In the closing panel, actually, I do want to spend a minute or two on this because it was eye-opening to me. So the closing panel had a guy by the name of Dan Moorhead of Pantera Capital, huge hedge fund, been bullish crypto guy for a long time. Another guy that you see on the timeline, Raoul Paul of Real Vision.
Yep.
This woman named Perry-Ann Boring from the Digital Chamber, which is like a crypto PAC, crypto nonprofit. Actually, she might not be the PAC. It's a nonprofit lobbying organization. And this guy, Dan Piero from Zenrock. And so it was a incredibly well, credentialed panel. And, a few things that I took out were like, I mean, you guys are both in the US, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like, how about that euphoria, like the day after the election or the night of and the day after the election? I know I just speak for myself. It really took me by surprise. I don't want to get into politics at all.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, it was a surprise. Like that Trump won was kind of a surprise. But then like within crypto Twitter, the level of euphoria was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah.
And what I found out, what I kind of realized is, the reason for that, a lot of people pay a lot of closer attention to this stuff than I do. But one of the points that was really well made at the Benzinga conference was, if you think about what crypto has done with the regulatory and political headwinds that we've been up against for all these years.
Oh, yeah.
Now, not only do the headwinds go away, but you have massive actual tailwind. Like some people just kind of, I think, realize that in the moment. I didn't realize it. All I found was the euphoria. But now you start to do, like at this conference, like I started to take some notes and they put some numbers to it. So crypto PACs, right? Political action committees, got into 58 races, congressional and U.S. rep races. 58 races they got involved in, and they won 54 of them.
Wow.
Across the United States, 250 legislators ran on pro-crypto platforms. Okay, so ran and won. So you have 250 legislators across the two houses that have been stated to be pro-crypto.
Right.
And then, enough said about Trump. Like if he gave that conference, I went back and actually read the transcript of the talk he gave at the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
And like if he tackles half of what he said he was going to tackle in the first 100 days, a crypto advisory, SEC regs, Bitcoin reserve, bringing mining to the U.S. in a big way. Like if he accomplishes half, I mean, it's lights out. Like what the institutional capital guys were saying was like, and again, it's like cliche, but like you're not bullish enough. Like you think about the amount of money that can come. So anyways, look, this is not about like I got kind of excited with New York City, big money, right? Big conference, fancy dudes, a lot of good networking meetings. So I got super bullish again, like just let's say generally on the markets and the amount, like the amount of like the wave of like never mind retail, right? Like on crypto Twitter, we talk about like what's mass adoption look like, when is retail coming, all that stuff. Like forget about that, dude. When the Wall Street money comes, it's game over. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Pantera said was like, if you think about it, if a U.S. equities investor wants to get exposure, okay, to the crypto markets, meaning like they're not looking to buy tokens, but they want to get exposure to like crypto companies, there's literally 3 stocks they can buy: Coinbase, MSTR, and like you can make an argument for Galaxy. Like, and that's it. So like they're talking about the amount of money that will flood from VCs, into investable crypto companies in the US is going to be outrageous.
Right.
So all those things have me really bullish, not just about price action, but about like us being freed up to, become a leader. Like I'm talking in the US now. And like with me, like I've spent the best part of the last year I've been spent trying to figure out how to stay out of the crosshairs of the regulator, right? And build a product in a way that will be compliant. It doesn't put me, I'm a young, well, I'm not so young, but I have a young family. And like I always say, I'm a US based real estate entrepreneur. I'm not trying to put myself in the crosshairs of the SEC. Back to my safety net analogy, right? Like if this thing doesn't work, I need to be able to go back to my, quote unquote day job, like, raising capital from accredited investors in the US. I can't put that at risk. And
if
so I find
that doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah. And so I finally see a way, like I really start to see some daylight and I see a way forward. So anyways, super long-winded answer to like, what's the next 3 to 6 months for the Forge? And I didn't even go there, but I wanted to share a few of those stats.
No, it's awesome. I'm glad you shared them, man.
And just know, like this was at Convene in Manhattan. Like, I can't imagine what they paid for the venue or whatever. Like these are serious people having serious conversations, about this stuff. So, so the Forge, what's next for the Forge? We are had incredibly bullish call today with actually Plume Network. We're going to try to get those guys on the podcast. Yeah. I mean, these are incredibly bright guys and gals, I'm sure, with TradFi backgrounds that if you visit their Discord or take a look at their Twitter, you'll quickly understand they're also of the web, like they're almost native Web3. Right. They haven't like come up with some marketing campaign to like fold themselves into Web3. Like they are Web3 guys. And so I'm very excited about continuing the conversation with them. They have some tech and legal structures, I think that really can be helpful to us, whether we, sort of plug in to, what they're building already or take what they've done and make it our own. I think the next 3 to 6 months for the Forge will be extremely exciting from a tech perspective and what does our platform and our protocol actually look like? Yeah. I think we're gonna have a lot of answers on that very soon.
Super exciting, man. And I think, like you said, just the craze around crypto and the, never mind the WAGMEs, regulation. My only holdback is what's true, what's not. But listen, something's gonna at least move forward, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of optimism around it. And like you said, throw the floor prices out. There's going to be some fundamental changes to make this space work better and have the VCs that have been hesitant for a long time come into the space. And I think it's going to be cool. And I'm honored that I know people like you and we can join along for the ride. So the last question before we close it out, we'll ask that question. Maddie and I will say our closing comments, and then we'll end it for the day. So the question is, you've been a part of a space that I've hosted for you. You've been part of hundreds of spaces. You might have been part of podcast. I'm not sure.
No, first podcast.
So how did your time on the Midlife Crisis podcast go today compared to the things that you've experienced in the Web3 space? Love to have it. Be critical. Anything you want to say?
No, I mean, it's awesome. It's hands down. The spaces that we do on a weekly basis, right, are needed. RWA is a complicated topic, all that stuff. Like, we need to try to break it down and attract as many people as possible. But it gets, it can get repetitive, especially for us on the panels, right? Like, new people are coming in and they need to learn and all that stuff. That's great. But something like this is so cool to like literally start at the beginning. Like, man, you're asking me about my childhood. Like, like I love it. Like, I know you've talked about it and we've been trying to set this up for a while. You always throw that stat around about, you at this point interviewed a couple hundred founders. Like, it's, I can't believe we've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. It's been a ton of fun. Highly recommend. We'll give you the shout outs on the timeline. If you got founders you're boxing with or whatever, anybody I can help convince to hop on, man. Like, this has been great. I really appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that too. And I'll just follow up that it seems like you thought, and that's our mission. Like your response is our mission, right? I genuinely deeply care about people. We've just built a friendship, like I said, around that virtual campfire. I cannot wait to continue to grow. I love helping out with the RWA spaces. I know you're going in the right direction. I've been working hard on my brand for multiple years, going in the right direction. There's tons of synergy to be made in the future. So I just want to make sure that we continue to have those conversations, be closely aligned. I'm here to help out in any way possible. I love what you're doing. And I knew you were a good dude coming into this. And now I know you are a really good dude. And I thank you for being what I loved about our conversation is a lot of times some of the people on, no offense to them, but it can get into like the theoretical way.
Yeah.
You gave a lot of practical applications. You even threw down like a couple one-liners from the uncle.
Yeah.
And I knew we were going to get like the Boston version of entrepreneurship, and we did. Yeah, and that made me happy. So thank you so much. And again, a guy like you, always say this, there's no way I can't say it. Your time is insanely valuable. And like you said, you just spent an hour and 40 minutes with us. That's worth a lot of money. So
yeah, man. But of it, I'll be honest with you, of everything I did today, like this is not bullshit or anything. Like, this is the easiest. And today, like just today, like not every day is tough, but I had a kind of a shitty day today. So like, this was the best hour and 40 minutes of my day, no question. I haven't been home yet. I haven't seen my wife and kids, right? So like, you're not stacking up there yet. But no, man,
I got chilled, brother. I just got chilled. That means the freaking world to me. And yeah, like I said, and we'll just a couple minutes after the podcast we'll talk. But the last question that I'll always ask to you and someone I want to grow with is, just start thinking about, you don't need an answer now, but what problems do you have that you think we could apply our skill set to start helping you solve? I'm always interested in helping out. So, cool. Maddie, I'll let you take it away and we'll shut it down.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I'll tell you. So you heard before we started that, when I was just doing my introduction, how Mikey got me into this NFT crypto thing, right? And to be honest, it's kind of felt like I've been kicking and screaming the whole way, because quite frankly, it's still very elusive to me. You know, the fact that Mikey started this with, look at these pictures you can buy and then sell. And it was like, you know, we're trading pictures of zombies and monkeys and things like this. And I'm like, what? And what helped was Mikey said, listen, this is how it's going to start, but where it's going to go. And he gave me this pitch, this real world asset pitch. And he talked about how things like real estate were such a good fit. And when he said that, and I started going down that rabbit hole, just like you connected immediately, you're like, man, this is an obvious use for this. That's what got my attention, right? It wasn't a specific NFT in the sense that, you know, a piece of art. It's knowing where this technology is going to go and how it can be used. And so this has been a fantastic conversation, because this is the stuff, this is kind of the meat and potatoes that I've been waiting for. And it's just really neat to see people who have a lifetime of experience in this now playing in this arena and saying, all right, how do we make this happen? And so it's a very exciting time. I really appreciate just hearing your conversation and insights, and I'm excited to be able to pick your brain moving forward on how we can do this and how we can do it together.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
And with that being said, people, we had a hell of a time. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the triple digit people watching. It has been a blast. You've been growing. Doc's obviously been dropping some bombs because everybody's just been joining throughout the whole podcast. We will be back tomorrow with some other RWA friends, Innova Properties. Cody is fantastic human being. We've already had an intro call. Really, really cool conversation. It's doing some similar things to Doc. But what's exciting is, and like we were talking about this earlier, right, Doc, is sometimes this industry in general can typically be super cutthroat, highly competitive. But now we have somebody like Innova and someone like yourself trying to figure out how to build community and do it together in the right way, which is beautiful around an industry like we're talking about. So we're going to have another great conversation. I'm sure insights we pulled today will help them out, and insights I pull tomorrow from them are going to help you out. We love you all. Mikey G, Maddie, and Doc are out.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.